I feel like that when it came to these final episodes, well, the fall season of Steven Universe was reaching to its conclusion, which leads to the following seasons having more complex stories. I always get the impression that these final episodes really sympathize the development of the characters reaching to the conclusion, which leads to the bigger complex development in the following seasons. And while that this episode doesn't include the complex stories involving the gem characters, mainly Garnet, Pearl, and Amethyst, for me personally, it really feels like that this episode alone is trying to showcase that Greg is capable of doing more than just being Steven's father. The premise of this episode is that when the crystal gems are trying to stop the Wailing Stone from that screeching noise it's causing, it's also, well, there's a message that is being received from the Wailing Stone itself, and they need to figure out a way, which leads to Greg doing most of the work in order to get the message that the Wailing Stone is receiving. And since that this is also around the time where Lapis is mainly a new character, and Greg thinks otherwise, that she is the antagonist, but Steven told his father that she just wants to go home. There was a lot more going on when it comes to the finale of this season. For me personally, the message of this episode, no pun intended, is mainly the fact that other characters like Greg are helpful when it comes to helping out the scenario. And believe me when I say this, for it being one of the final episodes, it really shows that after this season, a lot is going to change. And when it comes to Greg just trying to help out on retrieving a message from the Wailing Stone by using his equipment that is inside of his van, believe me when I say this, Pearl, Amethyst, and Garnet won't be able to do any of the stuff that Greg did because they're not accustomed to any of the stuff that humans does yet. Rewatching this episode really sympathized the development of these characters' relationships, especially since that Paul had a troubled time getting to know Greg, which was showcased in Season 2 that I'm gonna get to later on. And whenever I think about his development in this episode, it kind of shows that he's just trying to do the best of his abilities by understanding the stuff that he has that can cooperate with the stuff that the gems are dealing with. After the whole space race incident, it really feels like, for how the crystal gems are handling the scenarios on their own in comparison to Greg, who doesn't do much of the situations that the crystal gems or the other gems are causing trouble, all I can think of is that they're really hiding of what's going to happen in the finale of this show, which really shows that in this episode and the following episodes, they're really hinting on the impact of what this show is going to hit in the finale. And I think that what makes this episode really entertaining and really good to me is how that the show has changed since that we're reaching to the end of Season 1B. Granted, I combine all the episodes into one when it comes to a season that they're in, but whenever I think about Steven Universe Season 1, where it started in November 2013 and it ended on March of 2015, it really shows that there was a lot going on by building up the characters and world building itself. Even if I wasn't a part of that when it came to airing episodes, I really felt like that they actually knew what they were doing by handling the world building, by having that amount of episodes in comparison to the later seasons that only have 26 episodes or less. After Greg successfully connected the Wailing Stone to the TV, thanks to Steven's ideal, they receive a message from Lapis that they're coming to face off the crystal gems, and they have high quality equipment, like the equipment that Peridot had after the 2 episodes that we seen from her. And let me just say, when I first watched this episode 4 years ago, it was outstandingly, sympathetically amazing. Mainly the fact that the danger is real, and compared to the danger as the series progresses, it is there, but after watching of what this episode has transpired, they were taking the stakes to a whole new level. I'm gonna be really honest with you that whenever I think about the final episodes of season 1, it's mainly the fact that they're taking a route that people were not expecting from the show when they watched season 1 for the first time. And while I understand that old fans who do not like this show due to what it ended up becoming in the later seasons, I have to admit that I would probably feel what they felt mostly when it comes to the final episodes of season 1. And what I mean mostly, I meant mainly almost the exact same opinions. Because, like them, I've watched the entirety of this show, and I'm doing it again, but with different points of views. Because as far as I'm concerned, I know full well some X-fans mostly gave up on this show, which they never binge watch again. Granted, even though may be X-fans that may come back to Steven Universe when they gave the show a second chance, I pretty much know full well that the internet centering around the criticisms towards this show and the memes against this show are somewhat justified, but when it comes to memes, it's really becoming a lot more overrated. Memes or not, all I can think of is that this show just gets too much hate, and considering that it's gained attention despite ending 4 years ago, I think there's a reason to that. I think there's a reason for that is mainly the fact that Discovery Family is literally not taking animation seriously, which we're all highly familiar with over the last 2 years or more. Before we get into the finale of this season, there was one more episode that, with it being the final Beach City episode of this season, I wasn't going to include that episode in my top 25 Beach City episodes list that I scrapped, but rewatching that episode, I took it into consideration, but at the same time, you're gonna have to figure that out after this video comes to an end. So, you might as well just check into my next video that I've uploaded today to understand my perspective on that episode, because as far as I'm concerned, it's mainly for the best or for the worst, mainly the mail itself of Beach City. I'm giving this episode a 7.5 out of 10.